So it's Valentine's Day 2018, and I always, every time this time of year comes around, this day comes around, I always have this memory that comes up about my daddy that I would guess that this memory comes from about second grade, maybe. I can't remember. It seems like that he may have came and picked me up from school. I do know that Laura and Mama were not around. It seemed like it was just he and I were together, and for one reason or another, I don't know. That's just kind of some memory that I have, that it seemed like they were not maybe in town or they were out doing something else. But that doesn't make any difference. He and I went to a pasture north of town, and it's kind of hard to tell you where it is. On Old West Point Road, our Sturgis's Old West Point Road, north of town, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles. There was a pasture up there, and a man named Mr. Metters allowed us to keep cows on his pasture. And I think I know that's right. And he allowed us to keep those cows on his pasture. So we went up there to check on the cows, feed the cows, and that's a story for another day on feeding cows, my experience feeding cows. But for some reason or another, we had pulled over the road on the opposite side of the pasture, and maybe Daddy checked the cows, or we fed the cows and came back. But for one reason or another, we were sitting there. Daddy had a 1969 long wheelbase Chevrolet pickup, and that was kind of our truck. He had a work truck, but this was our personal truck. And we were up there doing that. Well, it was Valentine's Day, as I said. And as kids, just like, I guess any elementary school kids, we had all gotten our Valentines for the day. And everybody in class got a Valentine. And I was telling the kids this morning about how we used to get them in a little pack. It was about this wide and about that long. And all of them were different, but there was always one in there that seemed like it was better than the rest of them, and you gave that one to the one you really liked, to your friend or whatever that you really liked. And so anyway, we were sitting there, and in his truck, the glove box was really cool. And remember, you got to understand that these trucks were all made out of metal. There was hardly any plastic like there is now. And the glove box folded down. When it folded down, it laid flat, and it had cup holders, so you could sit there and eat on it if you wanted to. And that was a really cool thing. Can't do it in these for sure. But anyway, it had a little light in it. And I had folded that thing down, and I was going through my Valentines while we were at the pasture, again, for whatever reason. It seems like for a period of time he was not in the truck with me, and I had started looking at my Valentines. And when he came back to the truck, he mentioned, something about, oh, you got a lot of Valentines, or something like that. But I always think about that at Valentine's, and why, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it was a special time with me and my daddy. But that's just a memory I have of Valentine's Day at the pasture checking on the cows. I guess since I'm on the topic, I'll go ahead and tell you about feeding the cows too. Feeding the cows was an event too, because Daddy, I don't know how old I was, probably again in second grade. Um, we would go feed the cows, and feeding the cows consisted of having a hay bale on the back of that truck, and you cut the strings on the hay bale, and then you scattered it out, going down through the pasture where the cows would come eat. And I really felt grown up when I was feeding the cows, because Daddy would always give me his pocket knife, and it was an old timer, and he'd say, "Boy, don't you lose that knife." Well, being young, inexperienced with the blade at this point, I invariably always cut myself when we were feeding the cow. Cut my finger, not anything major, just, a little old light cut, not paying attention to what I was doing. But I can honestly say I never lost the knife, but almost 100% of the time I would cut my finger to a certain degree. But I always remembered that he gave me that responsibility of sitting in the back of that truck and throwing out the hay. And it was always late in the afternoon. We never did it during, it was always getting dark or whatever when we did it. But just good memories of me and my daddy, and that was one that sticks out on Valentine's Day.